Welcome to the Country Seminar presentation on Australia. In this video, we will be covering the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental aspects to show how eye-catching this country is for entering the market for business. Australia is an island nation that is located in the southern part of the Pacific Ocean. It is in the Western Hemisphere, and the midpoint of the Australian continent lays at roughly the same latitude as Africa's southernmost point, and the same longitude as Japan. It is also only one of the largest 6 nations that is completely surrounded by water. What fascinates business investors is that Australia's population is on track to hit 24 million later this year. As the country continues to grow, most of the population comes from immigrants who have settled, instead of Australians themselves reproducing. In fact, in the last 16 years, Australia's migrant population has risen by 2.75 million people. The current population is 24,392,063. The males make up 12,157,063, or 49.8%, and females 12,235,000, or 50.2%. Between 1995 and 2016, the proportion of Australia's population aged 15 to 64 years remained fairly stable, decreasing from 66.6% to 66.2% of the total population. During the same period, the proportion of people aged 65 years and over increased from 11.9% to 15%. The proportion of people aged 85 years and over almost doubled from 1.1% of the population in 1995 to 2% in 2016. The race for Australia is Caucasian 92%, Asian 7%, Native or other 1%. Australia's system of government is based on the liberal democratic tradition, which includes religious tolerance, freedom of speech, and association. Its institutions and practices reflect British and North American models but are uniquely Australian. The Australian Constitution does not explicitly protect freedom of expression. The High Court has held that an implied freedom of political communication exists as a part of the system of representatives and responsible government created by the Constitution, which overall they are considered free. Australia is a politically stable, prosperous, and peaceful country. There are 3 tiers of democratically elected government. They are federal, state, and local. Corruption is relatively uncommon when compared to other nations worldwide. Australia is ranked one of the least corrupt countries in the world, according to Transparency International's annual Corruption Perceptions Index, which measures indirect evidence of corruption in the public sector.
The rule of law is a principle which ensures that Australians are governed by laws which their elected representatives make and which reflect the rule of law. It requires that the laws are administered justly and fairly. The separation of powers are between the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. The law is made by representatives of a company in which open and transparent way. The administration is subject to open and free criticism by the people, who may assemble without fear. It is applied equally and fairly so that no one is above the law. The law is capable of being known to everyone so that everyone can comply. No one is subject to any action by a government agency other than the accordance with the law. A free market is the main characteristics of the economic system of Australia. The growth of the economy of Australia is phenomenal, and this country is among the first 5 developed countries of the world. The 4 main components of the Australian economic system are trade, manufacturing, services, and finance. The standard of living of Australia has risen significantly in the last 15 years and is just below the United States, which makes it great for investors. The total GNI, or the purchasing power, is $981.8 billion, and the GNI per capita purchasing power is $42,450. Australia's mixed market economy is prosperous. The market economy where the GDP is high and the rate of poverty is low, and their economic freedom status is free. Australia's inflation rate is hitting the limit of the Reserve Bank of Australia's tolerance after consumer prices rose 3% in the 12 months ended of June of this year. Inflation accelerated over the financial year due to largely rising housing, health, and education costs. While the central bank in the theory has one main goal, which is to keep inflation tame and the economy at full employment. Thus, inflation at the brink of the Reserve Bank's tolerance has ramifications for households, stockholders, and businesses. Australia is a politically stable, prosperous, and peaceful country. The Commonwealth of Australia, formed in 1901, is a federation of 6 states and 2 self-governing territories. There are 3 tiers of the democratically elected government. They are federal, state, and local.
Australia's major religion is Christianity, with the major denominations including Catholic, Anglican, Uniting Church, Presbyterian and Reformed, Eastern Orthodox, Baptist, and Lutheran. The 2 major denominations, Anglican and Catholic, account for 42.4% of the Australian population. About 18% of Australians speak a language other than English. Australian indigenous languages are spoken by about 0.3% of the total population. The most common languages other than English are Italian, Greek, Cantonese, Arabic, Mandarin, and Vietnamese.
In both Hofstede and Tropinar's cultural dimensions, Australia and United States are nearly identical. With this information, we can assume that in most situations, consumers will behave and think similar to citizens of the U.S. Australia recognizes the importance of having intellectual property rights and recognizes the incentives of innovation can stimulate economic growth. Australia has had quite an increase in growth in intellectual property. The amount of patents and copyrights have had a small increase the past few years, but going back the past 20 years, the number has drastically increased and almost doubled since 1996. In research and development, Australia compares quite well with other highly developed nations. While they only spend about 2% on R&D, it still parallels with other countries. Australia's environmental performance has taken an unprecedented drop in the past few years. While it did do well for water and sanitation, their worst performance was in the climate and energy category because of its continued trend in carbon emissions for electricity. Major strengths of Australia is that it is the 13th largest economy in the world. It has a sound economic policy and is extremely competitive in the marketplace. They also export many natural resources, most of which include iron ore, coal, and natural gas. There's also many sea-based ports on Australia, which are within a good proximity to growing Asian economies. In the weakness sector, the slowing productivity and growth has to do with the government throwing large amounts of money into sectors with declining efficiency. Mining is the main reason to this slow productivity growth, but as the operational phases take over, growth will soon recover. Also, the infrastructure deficit has had little investment. It has accumulated so much that the government admits they are unable to fund it out of normal revenue sources. Australia has many opportunities, though. They're embracing global economic change. Technology has reduced the cost of transportation so that distance is no longer a concern in cost. Their middle class is also growing and provide opportunities for high value and luxury items. They have a small but ever increasingly population and has already achieved a high level of per capita economic development and it is predicted to keep rising. There are some major threats to Australia. The issues are complex and varied at the heart of the problem. The issues are complex and varied, but at the heart of the problem is the ability of the government to fund itself. If things do not change, a catastrophe could happen, and then social and political changes tend to happen afterwards. Also, rising climate change can be a major issue, especially with their carbon emissions problems. While the exact effects are still being debated, the effects could include rising sea levels and changing rainfall patterns.